This talk was originally presented at the 2022 Inuit Studies Conference on Treaty 1 territory in Winnipeg, Canada. I'm Shelley Tulloch, and I'm one of the university-based scholars working on this project, along with Dr. Sylvia Moore, the primary investigator from Memorial University, Labrador campus. We're co-presenting with Inuit teachers and research partners Ola Andersen, Colleen Pottle, and Shannon Dicker. Our SSHRC-funded research project asked the question, how can collaborative professional learning, or PL, foster knowledge and skills in culturally nourishing and sustaining pedagogical practices? Culturally nourishing or culturally sustaining pedagogies are ways of teaching that reclaim and revitalize aspects of culture disrupted by colonial education. This was a participatory action research project in partnership with the Nunatsiavut government, which represents Inuit and Labrador on the east coast of Canada. We also partnered with the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District and the schools in the 5 Nunatsiavut communities. We worked together in a collaborative and iterative process, thinking through how effective professional learning might be delivered, developing professional learning modules, delivering these modules, analyzing what came out of them, and then talking to teachers again about how they experienced the professional learning and how it might have impacted their teaching. In the following slides, community-based researchers Colleen Pottle, Ola Andersen, and Shannon Dicker describe the need for and development of the professional learning, or PL, workshops, the delivery of the workshops and their preliminary results, and the limitations, applications, and next steps arising from the professional learning research. You'll hear from each researcher with key points from the video listed in the PowerPoint slide.
Hi, hello. My name is Colleen Pottle. I am an Inuit born and raised in Nunatsiavut. I've been a teacher for the past 7 years and love my role as an educator in an Indigenous community. I recently concluded a master's in education program, which provided me with exciting opportunities in Indigenous education. I completed the program with a course taught by Professor Sylvia Moore, which awakened my inner Indigenous spirit, a spirit that had sadly almost dissolved. I've had the pleasure to work with some awesome teammates during the formation and delivery of this professional learning session. During the initial planning stages, I suggested a framework which would later be confirmed as the official structure of the professional learning session. Professor Moore and students in the Inuit Bachelor of Education program, which was in Happy Valley Goose Bay, Labrador, they wrote an article called Inuit-Centered Learning in the Inuit Bachelor of Education program. I became exposed to this paper through my graduate course with Sylvia. In the article, the students conceptualized 4 elements of a culturally centered curriculum: language, land, local knowledge, and resources. I thought about these particular elements and suggested that we incorporate them into the professional learning session. With minor modifications, the 4 elements in our professional learning session were language, land, elders and knowledge keepers, and resources. Residing in an isolated community certainly has its challenges. I'm from a little isolated community. You can only get here by Twin Otter plane or ferry in the summer. We have a population of about 375 residents, but there's also many benefits as well, such as travel opportunities that allow residents to travel from community to community. I took advantage of the options and met many other Inuit along the way. Through connections, I could recommend Inuit motivational speakers based on each of the 4 elements. Again, language, land, elders and knowledge keepers, and resources. We must include elders and local voices in the session, and locating Inuit motivational speakers was quickly a success. Each of the elders involved was from outside of my community. They were from other communities within Nunatsiavut. Through Google Meet, I had the privilege to interview 2 of 3 elders for the professional learning session. As a team, we crafted questions to be administered. One elder in particular, who spoke about the importance of incorporating elders and knowledge keepers into the education system, made a statement that is now ingrained in my heart forever. He said, "When my generation goes aside, I don't know how much of our history will be left to teach others and show others. So I think there is a lot that's already lost, but we still have a chance to save some if elders would get involved with the system." The statement is very true and powerful. What if one day the Inuit elders in our communities are absent of Indigenous knowledge? What if Indigenous knowledge is something we only read about in the books and on the internet? There were many motivational statements made during the professional learning session that made a direct impact on my own teaching, not only as an educator, but as a mother and a community member as well. It was an influential session that has positively changed our school here in Makkovik, and I hope all other schools involved. Connecting with youth through hands-on experiences is becoming more and more complex, which I blame modernization for. You're seeing less and less youth going off on the land, but if teachers each share a similar mindset that strives to incorporate Indigenous knowledge ways of knowing into the education system, the relationship between elders and students can be revitalized. If it weren't for this experience, life would be continuing as usual. When I say usual, I am referencing a life that involves the decline of Indigenous ways of knowing. The session has created a fresh outlook which strives to include Indigenous knowledge whenever possible into the education system, but also into the communities as well. Thank you for listening, and I wish I could have participated in person. It is the last week of school here in Nunatsiavut, so I would be there if I could. Nakamik, thank you.
Hi, my name is Ola Andersen. I have a Bachelor of Education and a Master's of Education in Curriculum and Teaching. And I've been in the education field for over 30 years. And I'm a beneficiary of the Nunatsiavut Land Claims Agreement. So I'm pretty familiar with Inuit culture in our region. And I was happily accepting to be part of a facilitator for culturally nourishing pedagogy in Nunatsiavut schools. So what we did was we set up some 2 different dates for PL for teachers within Nunatsiavut schools, 5 schools in total. And I just wanted to talk a bit about how our PL was organized and what 2 questions we were looking at. So hopefully I'll explain this in a pretty concise manner. So our workshop was organized, most of it was through Google Meet, and we had pre-recorded elder presentations for all the participants to view and to listen to and to understand. We did this because of internet connectivity within our schools. And we had the elders talk about how important it is to incorporate Inuit culture into the 5 Nunatsiavut schools that we were looking at. And also the importance of the land connection, how the land teaches and how we can use our Inuit ways of knowing along with the Western ways of knowing in the school system to give students a rich and culturally relevant schooling experience. So we looked at 2 questions for our participants in a breakout session using a Jamboard. So one question that we asked that was really important was, what are some challenges of incorporating Inuit content into the classroom? So we had a Jamboard session And all the teacher participants were able to brainstorm their ideas and put them on a little sticky note and post it to the Jamboard for all the participants to see. So we discussed that, and it was really important to identify challenges within our school and how what some difficulties are in getting Inuit content into our schools. We also used the Jamboard session then, later on in the session, to talk about what are some ways that you could incorporate Inuit content into the classroom. And we had breakout room sessions for ideas for kindergarten to grade 6 and for grades 7 to 12. So what one of the organizing members did, along with me, Colleen Pottle, Colleen and I researched outcomes within the Newfoundland and Labrador Eastern School District. We pulled them from the resources and we organized them into K to 6 outcomes, and we organized them in grades 7 to 12 outcomes. And we wrote them up for our participants, our teacher participants, to look at. And then we tasked them with going into breakout sessions as groups to brainstorm and write about how these outcomes can include Inuit culture. So how could Inuit culture fit into these outcomes within our school system, along with the Western views of knowing? So that a great discussion ensued there, and we wrote down all our information and organized it, and we have that in a document to send to Nunatsiavut Education Department. We also looked at, I'll give you a specific example of that. So if I look at an outcome in grade 5 social studies within Newfoundland and Labrador, an outcome would be students are expected to explain how the environment influenced the development of an ancient society. And so what the teachers thought of in this PL session, how could they relate this to Inuit culture? We could talk about why did the Inuit live near the ocean? What are some building materials for seasonal homes for the Inuit? How did the Inuit have access to basic necessities such as water, fire sources, blubber, fat, or wood? And what was their food and diet of that place? We could look at local areas because each Nunatsiavut community is different. We could look at the local areas and see how they've changed throughout the years and decades. And we could look at geographic concepts using their own community. So the teachers in this PL session came up with these ideas of how we could teach this outcome within the school system. So our PL session, we got right into detailed examples of how we could make culturally relevant learning activities for students within Nunatsiavut schools. We also looked at how we can support and nurture Inuit children. We can make sure that we value our culture. So make sure that our culture is valued within the school system. We can allow Inuit children to practice and learn about their culture in an inclusive environment. We could, this one is kind of a touchy subject, but we can allow older Inuit children to become aware of how intergenerational trauma may have affected their lives or their parents' lives or their grandparents' lives. And how can we move forward using the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in education? How can we move through, allow this to become part of the school system, using resources that allow for openness and sharing. And when we look at the Newfoundland Labrador Eastern School District, a major component of their school system is social emotional learning. So Inuit culture and the trauma that some people suffered could be discussed there. So I just thought about myself as a teacher. I grew up in a system that included a lot of trauma, and it was only in later years that I understood the negative impacts that my parents felt and suffered in residential schooling and what impact that had on me. So I think it's really important to recognize that this could still be happening to the younger generation today, and their parents and grandparents. Sure. Where can we go with this PL? And I looked at this PL as just the beginning. Within Nunatsiavut schools, it is important to keep pushing forward with PL opportunities for teachers, NAEP workers, anyone who works in the school building. It's important for everyone to be aware of what we're promoting if we're moving forward with including our Inuit culture within the school in an open and inclusive environment. We need to make sure this process is sustained and continues to grow. I also feel very strongly about this statement. I feel that our Nunatsiavut teachers, they're teachers within Nunatsiavut schools who teach Inuktitut, life skills, crafting. They are the primary knowledge holders of the Inuit culture. I think that we need to keep fighting for them to have the same pay as teachers. So that's something we need to continue to work on. And teachers can continue to match Inuit values and culture to the Newfoundland Labrador Eastern School District outcomes and teach through both lenses, through the Inuit lens and Western pedagogy. Where can we go with this PL? And I looked at this PL as just the beginning. Within Nunatsiavut schools, it is important to keep pushing forward with PL opportunities for teachers, NAEP workers, anyone who works in the school building. It's important for everyone to be aware of what we're promoting if we're moving forward with including our Inuit culture within the school in an open and inclusive environment. We need to make sure this process is sustained and continues to grow. I also feel very strongly about this statement. I feel that our Nunatsiavut teachers, they're teachers within Nunatsiavut schools who teach Inuktitut, life skills, crafting. They are the primary knowledge holders of the Inuit culture. I think that we need to keep fighting for them to have the same pay as teachers. So that's something we need to continue to work on. And teachers can continue to match Inuit values and culture to the Newfoundland Labrador Eastern School District outcomes and teach through both lenses, through the Inuit lens and Western pedagogy. It is most important to include the community in learning activities wherever possible. Teachers should realize that they are facilitators, and the community elders and knowledge holders should be given every opportunity to share, participate, and become valued members of the school system. If we are to reclaim our Inuit culture and allow every child to have access to practices from the past and present day, it is important that elders are there to help guide us through it. It is important to develop Inuit-themed resources to be shared within all Nunatsiavut schools. I know that we do have a resource center in Nain, but that person within Nain working at that resource center still needs a lot of help. We need to demonstrate Inuit cultural values and sustain them. I think it's really important for each school to have a mentor and a list of elders that they can go to for help. And lastly, but not least, really promote the Inuit language, the language of the Inuit. No matter how small, we should be promoting it in daily learning activities. So overall, this PL session was just the beginning. I think we need to move forward with some more planning for teachers so that it becomes a natural part of our school system within Nunatsiavut. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shannon Dicker, and I am from Nain, Nunatsiavut, Newfoundland and Labrador. I am currently the Program Specialist for Indigenous Education with the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District, and I work closely with our 5 Nunatsiavut schools on the north coast of Labrador. First of all, I would like to comment on how successful the research collaboration, the Culturally Nourishing Pedagogies PL project, completed with our Nunatsiavut schools in March. So we only had 1 full school staff join from our 5 schools, and then there were educators and teachers from the other schools, but not the full staff. So I feel that it would have been a better representation of what was already happening and what is already happening in our schools if all teachers were to be present and they were able to join and contribute. So from this PL, we were able to gauge that our schools are doing many good things that highlight both language and the culture. So it was also a great opportunity to gain insight and gather ideas of what we could be doing in our schools. We had many great opportunities to share and to learn from one another, and that is one of the biggest highlights of this PL. We don't always have many opportunities to collaborate and learn together with other schools on the North Coast, as travel can be an issue and gathering can be an issue. So this was a great way for us to come together, to share ideas, to share our learning, to share our challenges, and to share some of the barriers that we face in order to have a better understanding and to move forward with the learning together as a whole. Through this PL opportunity, it allowed me as a program specialist for Indigenous education to better understand what successes we wanted to highlight and celebrate, but it also allowed me to see some of the challenges and barriers that are faced by our teachers. So I was involved in both the planning of the 2 half-day PL sessions by giving input and reaching out to possible elders and knowledge keepers for the session. I also spoke from my past experience as a kindergarten teacher teaching in Nain for 8 years previous to my new role this year, and some of the challenges and barriers that I face, but also some of the things that I would do in my classroom that would potentially help with some of the ideas that we wanted to highlight and share that could be done in our classrooms. I feel that being involved in this PL helped to guide where I need to be in this role and what things I can do to help teachers find success in making connections to local elders and knowledge keepers who can come in to teach lessons, allow me to ask questions of some of the barriers and red tape that limit educators in practicing some of the Inuit ways while in school, and it allowed me to want to find solutions and to work with our teachers to have a more positive experience. I also think it's very important to those newcomers and new teachers in our community to be able to come into the school and to feel welcome and to make those connections with the community, to have a mentor, to help them when they're planning their lessons and they want to bring some of the Inuit culture into the classroom. They want to bring in some of that knowledge and skills for the students to learn, to deepen their understanding or to engage them more in the learning process. I feel that working in partnership with universities can help to support change in terms of bringing more Inuit cultural ways of teaching into the schools by being able to conduct research in an ethical way, with the support of the Nunatsiavut government and working together with the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District. I feel it is very important for those learning partnerships to take place, and by working together collaboratively, I feel like we can move mountains and gain a mutual respect for the importance of indigenizing the curriculum, for making a conscious effort to ensure our students feel represented in lessons that they are learning, and to feel pride when they learn a valuable lesson or a new skill that will help them in life. This is also a way for our educators to learn our cultural ways and can be a great way to connect on a deeper level with both the students and the community. I wanted to thank you all for listening, and I hope that you were able to gain some insight into what it is that I do as a program specialist for Indigenous education, and the hopes of really bringing the culture and the language at the forefront of all the lessons that are going on in the school, whether it be math, science, language arts. There's just so many ways you can bring the culture in, and I feel that we are on the path to moving in that direction, and it makes me very happy.
Thank you to all who contributed to this project. The SSHRC Partnership Engage Grant, our university-based co-applicants, our partners, and especially the teachers, principals, and schools who participated in the research.